Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Perspective with Itu. Today we have award-winning, darling. Ooh, we have an author. Ooh. We have the one and only Mogau Seshoene, aka the Lazy Makoti. We are going to indwell, we are going to have conversations, we are going to get her perspective on certain things in life. And let's dive right into it. Welcome, Mahal.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
It's such an honor. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Mahal, I'm asking for the whole country. Mm-hmm. Don't say I don't look out for you guys. Okay. Is your name Mogau? Is your name Mahal? You know. And I mean, I have an executive, my house executive's name is Mahal, right? So how do we exactly pronounce your name?
So Sekhu-Pedi, so it's Mahal with a G, so Mahal.
Mahal.
Yes.
All right.
How you pronounce it?
Oh, so if I want to call you nicely, I'm going to say Mahal.
Mahal, yes.
Mahal.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. And because we want to get to know you better here today, what do people at home call you?
Mahal.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what they call me.
Are you serious?
Yes. Yeah.
Night home, Bampita Tolo. So now if I'm anywhere around the world and anybody says Tolo, I come out from home. Yeah, I know that this person knows me, you know? Okay, darling Mahal. Amazing. Mahal, so you were born in Turfkloop, yeah? Can you share with us how it was growing up with your mom and dad, and what kind of relationship did you have with them?
So I'm from a township called Turfkloop, which is in Polokwane in Limpopo. I have one little sister, so we grew up, the both of us, with my parents. My mom is a teacher. My dad is a pastor of a church. So grew up in a very conservative home, very strict home. Yeah, very loving home. I was a very sheltered child that I realize now. Yeah, but so much love.
Wow.
So much love.
Oh my God, so you're a PK.
I 100% through and through am. Whatever that means.
You're an obedient PK.
Listen, I was that child.
Wow.
Not by sang. Like,
is it?
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you something, Dad. Okay.
I was that child.
How crazy is it that you're a PK? Because most PKs are just like...
That is not true. I know what you want to say, but that is not true. Well, I know different ones, let me say.
Oh, when I'm at. The person is you. Okay.
Thank you.
And how is your dad as a father? Like, we now know him, you know, as a pastor, and he's a preacher and whatnot, but how is he as a father? And how do you think he has impacted your life as Mahal today?
My dad remains very strict. Yeah, he's that guy, very strict. And I guess because he had daughters, he had to be even more strict. Raising daughters in a township, he obviously had to be very strict, and he still is. And I think what I learned from him is not only discipline, but just clarity of thought, that when you decide something, to just see it through. I think I learned that. Many people would describe me as strict as well.
So
I think I get that from him as well.
Yeah. Oh my God, crazy. Do you think his strictness affected you in a negative way?
I mean, I don't think so. I think obviously as a child, if you ask any child and they had to choose, they'd rather their parent be fun. There are many moments where I wished I had, fun parents who were less strict, who'd let me go out and go to parties and whatever. But I think hindsight as an adult, I now recognized how necessary that was. There's just so many things that I was saved from as a child. And as a young adult, purely because of the household that I'm from. So I think, a lot can be said about what he could have done better, or what my parents could have done better. in those days,
Yeah.
not to give away my age, in those days, with mental health, with depression weren't, the topics that they are now. So yeah, there are blind spots to parenting, our parents, things that they definitely could have done better. But I think in the main, I recognize that they did do the best that they could.
Sure. And I love that you mentioned mental health, because I mean, that's what I actually want to talk about here today, but I want to take it back again to you growing up with your dad, right? How important is it, do you think, growing up with your father, right? Not just in today's society, but as a society at large. I mean, like, we have over 70% of households that are just led by women, right? By single moms. How important is it, do you think? Is it by being raised by a dad who was strict, who was loving, I hope, right?
In his way.
Right? And now we look at you now today, and you are a product of that.
Sure. I think men and fathers play such an important role. I think luckily it's not just your biological father that can play that role.
Yeah.
It can be uncles. I mean, I grew up with really fantastic uncles who supplemented that fathership role. A really amazing grandfather. And just like men in the community, I mean, the community that I grew up with is very much the village raises the child. So I think I was also lucky that way. But to answer your question, I definitely do credit a lot of who I became to having that experience of a father who was not only present, not only strict, but did try his best. And I think even as a child, I could recognize that he was trying his best, even in moments that, weren't the nicest.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that I think about in my childhood, just how protected I was. I think that's such a privilege to grow up in a township environment, but still feel very protected, which is how I felt. Whatever I lacked in my childhood, I did have a happy and protected childhood, which I think is so important.
Yeah.
I always say that, my dad nakiadigate from this side. So when he said 5 o'clock you have to be in the house, it was because 5 o'clock he was in the house.
Yeah.
So I think just those examples of being strict, not only with us, but not being a hypocrite and practicing a lot of the things that he tried to teach us was very important.
Ooh, that is powerful. And what is your benchmark today for a partner? Because you were raised by such a dad.
I think, like I will keep repeating, the privilege of hindsight is also recognizing that there is a lot that he couldn't do. There are a lot of mistakes that he did make. So I think now I'm more able to appreciate the wholeness of a person, that nobody's perfect. But what really matters is that they're trying. So now, as opposed to just seeing my dad as my dad, I recognize and see him as a person before he was my dad. So he also had a childhood. He also has scars and traumas and people that failed him, and all of that contributed to the man and the father and the husband that he became. So really cutting him some slack. And I think that will, influence any relationship I'll have with men. I think sometimes we can be, very tough on men, the expectations that we have of them to always have it together.
Yeah.
And so I think having grown up with my dad has also meant seeing that, like, a person can be a combination of all these things.
Yeah.
So there are times when they are strong and a provider and a protector, and then there are times when, they buckle under that pressure. But just being able to appreciate that a person isn't just one thing.
Sure. Ooh. You said that there were lots of things that you wish that you had, right? What are some of the things that you wish that you had when you were younger?
I think I recognize now that they weren't as important as, the value I had placed on them before. We obviously all had like a dream school that we wish we went to.
Yeah.
My parents couldn't afford for me to go to what I thought was my dream school that would unlock, the me in the future.
Yeah.
Like frivolous things,
Yeah.
like the toys that I wish I had had that my parents didn't have the resources to get for me. Like I said, I wish I didn't have curfew that maybe some other kids didn't have, or my cousins didn't have when they were allowed to go to parties.
Yeah.
I was always that person that couldn't go.
Yeah.
But I think you realize now how much of that was necessary because of the environment that they were parenting in. They had to be a certain kind of person in order to get me to adulthood.
Sure.
And now, in hindsight, I really am grateful. Yeah.
Sure. Did growing up without those things affect your esteem in, like, anyway, as a child, where like people would like come through, like your friends, and you'd be like, oh yeah, but I don't have this, whatever. And maybe like you would see that from like another friend that you would have.
Let me think about that. Honestly, I recognize the incredible power in creating stability for a child, safety for a child, and love. Because some of these things I can't even remember. But those three things I definitely did have. And that's not just in my parents, but in the friends that they chose to have, in, extended family, in my grandparents and my uncles and my aunts and my cousins. I recognize how much of a loved child I was. Like I thoroughly understood that I was a wanted and a loved child.
Sure.
And I think that goes a long way. Like I said, there's so much that I didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
But I just knew it. Now I was loved.
Sure.
I think I knew that so much. And I think that, I don't want to say it makes up for everything, because it doesn't. But it really does go a long way, particularly in building, your self-esteem.
Sure.
I remember being such a confident child, and I realize now it just comes from having, a stable home, having love, having all of that. We didn't necessarily have meat every day.
Yeah.
But still, I was this really confident child who believed in themselves and knew that they were loved and wanted and had a place in the world. So I think that really goes a long way. I know it sounds, very like sugar-coaty, but I recognize how so much of who I am now is because I just had that. I just had love. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you mentioned school and confidence, because that's actually my next question. Tell me about your time at school. Was it easy for you to make friends? And if yes, where did you get that confidence from? I know that you mentioned the love from home, so that's one of it. Was it easier for you to make friends and say, hey, Tommy, how you my love?
I think it was relatively easy, but I don't just credit, my confidence. I think I went to a small school, so I think it was easy enough to make friends. We all sort of came from the same community, same sort of background. So I think that goes a long way in like making it easy. There weren't like really kids who were like super, super rich, or like super, super poor. We were all sort of, came from like the same kind of lived experience. So I think that made it so much easier. I went to a Christian school, which I think also helped. So just principles of Christianity, it makes everyone, easier. Yeah.
Sure.
I think that made it a lot easier.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And what type of conversations do you wish you had with your parents when you were younger? Now, looking back.
Sure. It's a very difficult question to answer now, with the things that I believe now.
Okay.
because even when they were messing up, so to speak, and now I kind of get it. In like adulthood, you kind of get it. I actually think it's quite insane that like at their age, they had like 2 kids to raise and like a bond to pay and jobs and like things to contribute to the community. I actually think it's really crazy that like these 2 like 20-something-year-olds were like raising 2 kids and doing everything that they were doing. So yeah, hats off to them.
Yeah.
I couldn't, like, I can't, my mind can't fathom the people that my parents had to be so young.
Sure.
And they just had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, on their own, they had to make it work and they had to figure it out. When I have so many tools, so many resources available to me now, but I don't think I could have done half the things that they were doing. I also recognize that while they were raising me, they were also still growing, essentially. Because they were like in their 20s, they were children. So I think now I'm able to cut them more slack in the things that they maybe lacked as people. So yeah, I think if a conversation I maybe would want to have now would be that I hope that they know that it's okay to just be them, to like take off the parent hat a little and just like they've just given so much. And I hope that now they're able to find rest and just find rest. I think that they've given so much that I hope they know now that it's okay for them to take, for it to be their turn to take.
Oh, I love that. What type of conversations do you wish you had with yourself when you were younger, and why?
With myself when I was younger, I think I wish that someone had told me that it's okay to fail. I grew up as like an A student and prefect, and I think, that kind of personality type, we don't take failure very well. And it's kind of hard. And like I said, I grew up with very strict parents. Very, very strict parents. I remember my dad going to an award evening at school, I think the 4th grade, and he was so upset when I didn't get an award.
Wow.
I was like fuming. And I think, just like that pressure on a child, and bless his soul, I understand why he was that person. But I wish I had known that it's okay to fail and that the dots will connect. And one failure doesn't paint your entire life. Like, you literally can wake up and be something else tomorrow.
Look, I struggled with that as well. Like, growing up as a student, laughing at other children when they failed because of my own low self-esteem, and eventually I get to varsity, and my first year I fail my major.
That's when you realize,
right?
We're big fish in a little pond.
Right?
You come to this place and everybody's an A student.
And now that crippled me because, like you're saying, I'd never failed in my life. So it took me longer to recover. And I remember that moment when I saw the result and it was a fail. And I was like, me? No, this can never be me. And I cried my eyes out, I think for over 2 weeks. What was that moment for you when you had failed at something? And do you remember how you paralleled through it?
It's funny that you mentioned that. But I think for a lot of, A students in high school, that's kind of the first moment we have to like contend with failure. And I think maybe not enough is done to prepare us for that moment. Like, imagine your entire school career. You're used to being this person, and then you get to varsity, you're on your own first of all, and then this is the first time ever you failed. My first time ever failing was in varsity as well, and it was just such a strange phenomenon. I could fail. But I think I I think we had access to like counseling back in varsity. I want to say that helped. But I think also having friends around also helped. I'm trying to think what also did help. But I know that's one of those moments where that can really, if you're not careful, that can really like be the beginning of the end for you because of just that one failure that you're unable to get out of. And I don't think we equip young people enough to know that it's okay. I mean, maybe now because with the mental health are very topical, maybe now they could, but back in my day, like that could be like a make or break.
Yeah. Oof. And how do you deal with failure now?
Sure.
Are you still
easier now? So much easier now. Sure, so much easier now. Just the polar differences in how I dealt with failure before versus now. So now I recognize that in any situation, failure is a possibility. Yes, I could do it right, or I could mess it up. You know, that's very much a possibility. So even knowing that, I think frees you a little bit.
Sure.
But then also knowing that, I know they say it a lot, but the failure is how you learn. If you're not failing, then you're probably not doing anything. So my approach to failure is very different. I'm not scared of it, which I think is a big part of it. I'm not scared to fail. I'm not scared to not know. And I recognize that that's how you grow. That's how you learn. And if failure does happen, I'm not going to die. I'm going to sit, obviously, and cry about it and mourn whatever I need to. But then tomorrow is a different day and a different chance for me to try again. And no one failure will ever define me. You know, if I lose everything tomorrow, I'll start again. I really, truly believe that. That whatever brilliance is in me that helped me create something, I'll be able to do it again.
So you are a chef, as we all know. I refused to cook for people like you. Thank you very much. Like, you know, spice more man, you know? Like it was just higher money to man, you know?
We probably some of the easiest people to cook for because nobody ever does. So you're just so appreciative that like someone did that for you.
You know,
hint, hint, wink, wink.
Shame.
Not shame, but like I appreciate this effort because nobody ever does.
So people might think that being a chef is just preparing food, right? But we know that it's a very stressful job, and it's quite a high-level job, quite high-pressured. How do you calm yourself down after a very stressful day? Basically, how do you make sure that you don't bring the Lazy Makoti to your home?
Sure. I think that requires a lot of discipline. I was actually just having a conversation with someone today about how work-life balance really is a balance. But the one thing I try to do is just try be present. So when I'm wearing the Lazy Makoti hat, I'm giving 100%. And then when I'm Mogau, I'm giving 100%, be it at home, with friends, etc. That even there, I'm giving 100%. But like I said, it continues to be a balancing act. No 2 days are the same. No 2 years are the same even. But yeah, it continues to be a balancing act that's not perfect. It's not perfectly 50-50. Like I said, there are years that require more of the Lazy Makoti than Mahal, and then vice versa. The year, for instance, I'm releasing a book will very much require for me to work harder than the year that I'm not. And just making peace with that when I'm required to give 100%, give it where I should, you know. They give the example of a businessman at the beach. So while he's in the office, he's thinking about the beach and not giving 100%, which is not useful. And then while he's at the beach, he's trying to type it on his laptop, which is not helpful either because he's supposed to be with his family. So just accepting that when I'm at work, this is all I can do, be at work. And then when I'm at home, this is all I should try and be. not always perfect, but yeah, I try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get it right someday.
Nice. So you're in a very competitive industry. How do you nourish your mental health?
How do I nourish my mental health? Sure, good question. I'm not sure that I have it down to a science yet. But I found that exercise helps a lot. It helps clear my mind. I love the spa. I love quiet moments. So just trying to invest in self-care whatever way I can. But yeah, I don't think that I've got it down to a science. And I hope to one day.
Yeah. And what does self-care, Mahal, look like, and how important is it to take care of yourself?
I think it's exceptionally important, particularly as an entrepreneur, because for the most part, you are the business. So I think it is important to invest in Mogau so that Mogau can keep giving the best. So yeah, I believe 100% in self-care. You will find me at the spa. You'll find me at a beach somewhere, relaxing, really just taking that time of stillness. Because there's so much noise in the world. I journal every day. And yeah, I do believe in pouring back into self where I can.
Mahal, you've got 10 fingers and you've got 2 hands. Are you reaching your full potential?
Sure. Maybe not. Am I reaching my full potential? Not yet. But I think that the goalposts, they shift each year with like whatever new skill you acquire, as you expand your network, as you learn better. I think those goalposts will forever, I mean, the things that I wanted, say, 5 years ago, are quite different to what I want now and will be different from what I'll want in 5 years. But I think I am trying. I don't know if I am trying at 100%, but I am trying. And I do think I'm on a great path in reaching my full potential. Yes.
I love that. Please take that mirror for me. Is it the right way around?
Now it is.
Mahal, I started seeing my beauty when I stopped looking at myself. But when I started seeing me, what do you see when you look into that mirror?
So, I see a beautiful, ambitious lady who tries her best to try her best all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Nice. Thank you so much. You can put it down. We have now got into the last segment where I'm going to ask you your perspective on various things. What's your perspective on power?
Sure. On power, I think everyone should not underestimate just how much power they have, particularly the power to change your own life. And this is irrespective of who you know, who you don't know, where you come from, what you have. I think a lot of us realize too late just how much power we have to change our own lives.
Sure. What's your perspective on freedom?
On freedom, I think true freedom is when you live your most authentic lives. It makes me think of when I was leaving corporate to start the Lazy Makoti, and I think the overwhelming feeling I felt was one of freedom, even when I wasn't making money. Even as challenging as it was, even when I was still trying to make a name for myself, but the overwhelming feeling I felt was freedom.
Sure.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on love?
On love, I think love is such a beautiful and powerful thing. not enough can be said about the transformative power of love. And it's such a privilege to be able to give and receive it. And I think we should, try to give more love.
Love it. What is your perspective on spirituality?
Spirituality, again, another powerful, really transformative thing spirituality is. For me, when you mention mental health and self-care, I also think that spirituality is one of those pillars, and something that is really key in like striking that balance, especially in the world that we find ourselves in now.
And what is your perspective on purpose?
My perspective on purpose is that everybody has it, and that unfortunately, because we live in such an ageist society, it can feel like there's a timer on when you should have discovered your purpose, and there isn't. You can literally discover it at like 10 years old, or at like 50, or at like 70. And it's just as important to discover your purpose. And when you do, the universe will meet you where you are.
Love it. In that camera over there, can you please tell the people what they should be looking forward to, and also where they can find the Lazy Makoti book?
So what you can look forward to is I'm releasing a book with a brand. I think it comes out early next year. And then next year as well, I released my third cookbook, which I'm really excited for. And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, or should I say X? X is now. Whatever it will be called when you see this video. On TikTok, basically all the platforms, Facebook, at The Lazy Makoti.
Love it. Mahal, a candle tried to burn me. It also tried to ruin me. But that candle lives within me, and that candle is shining bright. And I'd like to say to you today, let your candle keep burning and keep shining.
Thank you so much.
And from me, Mrs. Sekhu-Pedi, keep your perspective alive.